Dear Thay, dear Sangha, today is November 4th, 1921, in the Stillwater Meditation Hall in a day of mindfulness in spring. Since the beginning of the winter retreat until now, I have a chance to sit and meditate next to Thay's meditation cushion. And this chance gave me a lot of happiness. Each time I go into the meditation hall, I bow to the Buddha and I recite the Gatha when I arrive at the meditation hall. And then after that, I bow to Thay's cushion and then I bow to my own cushion. And this moment gave me a lot of faith and a lot of gratitude. I'm aware that Thay is not here because Thay's body, he was back in the Hill temple, but his energy, his peace, the peace that Thay generated for the upper hamlet in these decades is still here, still very warm. And this meditation hall has witnessed many venerables and many brothers and sisters being here and sitting together in meditation and sharing together and have carried out a lot of transformations. So when I sit here, I sit in this gratitude. So whenever I see a cushion of my brother or sister that's empty and there's a sign that says that I'm sick or doing the Sangha's work, then I feel very grateful. And I can feel the presence of my brother and sisters very clearly there in that sitting. And if sometimes I don't see the sign on that cushion and I don't neither seeing my brother or sister there, and I feel it's a bit lacking or missing something. So I'm very happy whenever I ask my brother to put the signs that's sick or Sangha work for me whenever I am not able to go to sitting or morning meditations that day. So I feel like it creates such a warm atmosphere in the meditation hall. And it is something that's beautiful, even though I'm not present at the meditation hall, even if my health does not allow me to there, or I'm busy with Sangha's work. But yet I sense my mindfulness energy to the Sangha. There's this yearning that I want to sit with the Sangha. I put that signs there so that I can express that my heart that I really want to sit here with the Sangha, that I do not want to miss this chance of practice, this chance of Kungfu with the Sangha. But because of some reason, I cannot be here in my body, but my heart, my yearning to practice, my yearning to discover, explore my 5 skandhas, this yearning to generate happiness for my own self and the Sangha is still very much there in the meditation hall. And that is something that's very beautiful. It's a kind of monastic lifestyle. We call it, there is this, the behaviors that we would have in the temple, such as the behaviors or routines that we have at home. It's something we have in the temple to show that we truly want to be here in the Sangha, that I truly want to take roots in the Sangha and to open my heart truly to practice and to learn. So whenever I see the sign that say cannot go to meditation because of sickness or Sangha work, then I feel happy to see that sign. And even now, I still have this feeling that I'm always wanting to go to the morning sit or the evening sit with the Sangha. So when during these sits, I feel that I'm very deeply present for myself and for the Sangha. And there are friends who are not able to come to the Plum Village to come here because of work or some other reasons. So then I feel that when I'm on the cushion, I can be with them. I can love that person and accept that person. And during this time sitting on the cushion, I can transform a lot of these energies that are not very wholesome within myself. So I create for myself an island of self that I can live with the most wholesome, most beautiful quality in myself during this time. So when I sit next to Thay's cushions, I also feel like I benefit from his energy right there, because Thay have lived his whole life. His whole life he performed all these transformations for himself and for others, and he want to offer his insight for life, for those who are suffering, for those who are needing, for those who are lonely. And that source of energy is sitting next to it, but I feel like it takes roots within myself. And sometimes I also feel sleepy during a sit. I sit down and I cannot like this, and I cannot follow my own breath. And when I not down like this, I feel like Thay is sitting next to Thay. So I said, I'm so sorry, Thay. Please let me sleep for another 3 minutes. and I can feel that Thay's smile and his acceptance. Not every sit I'm successful. Some sits I can sit very well and has a lot of fruits, but there's times when I a bit more has a tougher time, that sometimes I wish the 30 minutes will be over. This is something normal. Our practice sometimes is very effective, some very go in good direction, and sometimes it has a lot of some trouble. But myself, I want to keeping this this face. This is what we call Kungfu. Kungfu means something that we keep on diligently, that we do not let it go. Kungfu, it means something that I wish I want to do, and I continuously doing it. And because of this continuous doing it and doing all the time, so sometimes it can be a lot of, so it's something that I keep on continuously. So if something that, oh, it seems very going in a good directions and easy for me, it's not I using that to keep going forth too much, or that when there is some difficulty that I would give up. So I keep my energy to be balanced and keep going forward. That's what it's called Kung Fu. And we often use the terms 6 Kung Fu a day or the 2 Kung Fus a day. So this is something that we maintain in our daily practice, in the Zen practice. Brother Phép Nguyen in Vietnam, he just answered a Q&A during Thay's calligraphy and books exhibition in Vietnam. It was about a week ago, and he said that the exhibition was very beautiful and very warm and can help so many people, even if they just look at Thay's calligraphy or look at a few pages in his book, or being in the same space, in the meditation space of the exhibition hall. But those people were also transformed a lot. They found themselves and they're able to touch this true happiness. And the brother said in that Brother Phép Nguyện, in that Q&A, he said the exhibition in Saigon, it had the last calligraphy that Thay wrote before he got sick. And that calligraphy was written on October 15, 2014. So that's about a whole month before Thay had the stroke. Thay, that brother said, Thay said during that time, when Thay was in the hospital, his right leg, he couldn't move. And one time in the hospital, one of his toes in his right leg, it just moves a little bit. And when Thay saw that little toe, it was moving a little bit on his right leg, he was so happy. He was able to touch this deep happiness in the present moment. So when he came back to into his hut, he wrote his last calligraphy that say one little toe wiggling. He was a Zen master, 88 years old at that time, but he has this very simple happiness, just one little toe wiggling. And that makes him so happy, so joyful from the hospital, and then when he came home and all those other days after, and able to write this calligraphy that says one toe's wiggling. So when I read that interview, I was very moved that I can see that Thay's refuge is very deep. And he's able to find little joy and happiness, very simple happiness. And he's able to show himself and to show others this very simple happiness, very normal, but it's very deep. And sometimes we're able to move a whole body. We can talk easily. We can play volleyball and soccer very normally, but we do not recognize this is a great happiness. It's a great jewel that we have, that we're holding in our hands. And sometimes we lose this jewel. And then we suffer, we feel sad. And we are not able to recognize these jewels, these small jewels, these little joys and happiness. Very simple. Thay had gone everywhere to bring a lot of joy and happiness and transformation and healing for life. But at the same time, he never forgets. I feel that Thay never forgets, never being taken for granted. These very simple moments, these very unordained, these very ordinary moments in his life. And there's a great lesson that I am continuing and aspiring to continue to receive from Thay. To live with his whole heart, practice with his whole heart, and service with whole heart. During this time, our Sangha has this great chance that we don't, in the whole life, we can get in these great big blockage and turmoil and the pandemics. And it's the same in Plum Village. We have this chance to focus our energy into our practice, is each individual's. The teaching of the Buddha left behind for us, or our teachers left for us, is very deep. But sometimes we don't have enough time or enough chances to touch, to invest it, our whole life, all of energy, all our best into this. So this is a great opportunity for us to recognize how rich we are, to recognize what we are receiving, the inheritance from the Buddha, from our teachers, and from Thay, so that we can recognize what is something the most needed. That is something that we would focus on with our life or death, so that we can develop our ability to dwell happily, to take refuge happily. It shows greatly during this time, the time we have to face the challenges in the outside world, also the challenges within our own heart. When we have this time to practice, when we have this free time, how do we practice? It shows whether our Kungfu is deep or not, whether we're able to come back to ourselves or not. In the Trúc Temple in Huế in 2002 or 03, I was still a novice, and I rode a bike and visit the temple. And at the tea house, I read a parallel verse in calligraphy. The Trúc Lâm or bamboo forest temple has brother Thay. So he was one of the monastic that generate inspiration for Sư Ông, for Thay to become monastic. And one of the brothers there, it was the younger brothers in the practice that Thay loves so much. So that is Brother Mật Thể, which is a disciple of the monk here. And Brother Mật Thể is one of the brothers, that's younger brothers, that Thay loves very much and respect very much, and have worked together for many years. And at the Bamboo Forest Temple, Thay also have taught about these two parallel verses. So these two parallel verses come from this temple. When I was a novice and I saw those parallel verses, let me write down for you. It's in the Sino-Vietnamese. So on the right hand side, the parallel verse is Bần cư não thị vô nhân vấn. It means a poor person. Even if you live in a busy, noisy city, vô nhân vấn, it means vô nhân vấn means no one come and ask you for anything. A poor person living in a busy city, no one comes to ask you about anything. And the verse on the left-hand side is on the left-hand side. Phụ tại thâm sơn, hữu khách tâm. It means a rich person lives in a deep mountain, still has guests that come and find him. So it's a very interesting parallel verse. A poor person in this busy city, no one comes and asks him. But a rich person in the deep mountains, there's still guests coming to visit. So a rich person, even lives in a very deep mountain, there's still someone coming visiting him. I read these two verses. I was very impressed, even though at that time I did not understood what it means. So this word po or bang is very interesting. So boy means it's a treasure, and there's something, the upper part means is a sword that it divides into 8 parts. So if you divide your treasure into 8 parts, then of course you will use it up and you become poor. And the word fo here, it means this is the roof, very solid roof, and there's one person in there, one mouth to eat. And this word here means ding. It means the field. So under a roof, it means a person has a roof over and a field and only one person to feed. So this person become rich. Someone who can work, who has a fortune to continue to work his field and to eat, and he become rich. So the word poor, bang, means that you have one treasure, but you divide into 8 and then you keep eating it. And then one day your whole fortune is gone. So on this word, the rich means you have a place to work and to practice. So when later on I look deeply into this parallel verse, I see that this word full, the word rich, is very interesting. The field, we have this word called tamde, which means the field of our mind, the field of mind and heart. The field of our mind, our heart, is boundless. We can discover that we might need many months and years to explore and to discover it and to work with this field. There are seeds that sometimes one day it just come up suddenly that you have never seen it before. And this is a chance for us to look deeply into the field of our heart. Look deeply into our 5 skandhas so we can liberate. To look deeply into our 5 skandhas so we can see the true nature of life. Last Thursday, we had a chance to hear Thay share the story about the muscle man who can use his body to go in everywhere, every place, but he cannot escape his life. So, but in our body, with our body, our 5 foot tall body, we can use this mind to explore the 5 skandhas, to explore the true nature of this world. And that's when we can see our Kungfu is very rich. We live here. We practice and we are present for each other. And we discover our 5 skandhas and look deeply into our 5 skandhas. And one day we see that we're actually so rich that we don't want to just roaming around the east, north, west, everywhere to seek, but we look deeply. That's what the Buddha called Kungfu, or our teacher called Kungfu. We spend more time for ourselves, spend more time for our practice. When we walk, when we work, or in a meeting, we can invest this energy of Kungfu. Sometimes we can discuss something difficult in the Sangha. We can still have Kungfu and invest in our breath. and invest in our practice. And slowly we can see that we are actually very rich. And the opportunity for us to learn deeply the teachings of the Buddha and of our teachers. So within this time, I feel this is very appropriate time. A poor man living in a busy city, no one visits. You're poor, wherever you are, you're still poor and no one's come and ask you. Because sometimes people come and ask you a question and you don't know how to answer at all. They ask you something about the practice. That's what our teacher Wisa is like. You're like a duck, just quack and quack. They ask you about the teaching on the breathing, and you just quack like a duck. Because sometimes I feel very embarrassed because I invest in my steps or my breath, and once in a while I can judge or I can criticize that was based more on my feelings or my emotion more than based on my own practice. So if a rich person living in a deep mountain, there's still guests coming to visit. So when we are rich, do not worry that we cannot do anything. Do not worry that we don't have any field to farm. Or do not worry that how come there's no guest for me to come and take care of so that I can give Q&A to. I feel that we have a lot of chances to give ourselves these general introductions or the Q&A for our own self, to be consultations for our own self. And each time that we do Kung Fu, and our practice can be deeper each day. This word học or learning in Buddhism is very deep. Học in outside, it can mean to learn. It means you copy someone, you copycat someone else when you learn. We have this word to be a copycat, just follow other people. And the second meaning of this word học or learning, it means that we want to understand. We want to grasp the issue. For example, we learn about the sentence, the Buddha look deeply themselves, the Prajna Paramita, and see the five skandhas are not a separate nature. Once the Bodhisattva have realized that for himself and can liberate from all difficulties. So then we learn what are the five skandhas, what is in the five skandhas. So we grasp it, we understand what it is. So we have this word vang tet, which means we listen, we hear, and we try to understand it. And the third meaning for to learning is very deep in Buddhism. Learning means to practice, to maintain. In the word, the three learnings, which is mindfulness, insight, and concentration. So the three learnings, it means to practice, to maintain, to invest all of your energy in. So this practice is something that we do our own life. Sometimes we can see that Thay can teach something so simple. Each books They all talk about coming back to ourselves, coming back to our breath, coming back to our breath. We keep reading it and we can feel like, oh, this is boring. And we have this need to find something else more exotic, more something newer to learn, or learn to read a different book and find different methods of practice. And we just think like, oh, at Plum Village, there's nothing. And so we have this need there because we see that we can study 5, 7, 8 years at Plum Village. And it's almost feel like, oh, I learned everything already. But for myself, the truth is the meaning of the study or learning in ourselves is still very small. This is something that we can see for ourselves when we walk, when we sit in meditations, when we work. We can check to see how many percent is my learning, how deep is my Kungfu, how much have it matured. When I see that I still have a few weaknesses, then I can see that my learning here has not fully accomplished and I can still learn. I want to walk this life and this whole path, that I want to learn what is Thai fortunes, his inheritance to us. I have this luck to come here, become his student. So I have to find every ways to explore all the fortunes, the inheritance that Thay have given us, this momentous inheritance. If I have not discovered his whole inheritance, then let me not think about other things yet. The Sangha, if sometimes you learn Chinese, it's very fun. There's certain words that's very interesting. Once you analyze this word, it's kind of fun. For example, when I see the word full or rich, when I'm able to analyze it in that way, it's very fun. And they generate some inspiration for me to know. It's not that every word I can analyze it clearly like that. But I see that there are so many interesting words, such as our names. If we come home and we look in the dictionary and see what is my name in Chinese, and trying to look in those characters, see what does it mean? Because Chinese is a symbolic visual language that our ancestor, they have really tried hard to present these concepts so people can look at this these symbols and trying to understand what it is. So for example, we have Sister Annabelle, Sister Jung Đức. So let's look at the word Đức. This is how it's Đức is how it's spelled. So it's written like this. So this characters means to work. And this word means 10 and means the eyes. So 10 eyes, it shows the majority, a lot of people. But this one heart. So 10 eyes, 10 people working, but with one heart. It's harmonized, it's milk and water. So this create a strength. The strength is this merit, the word đức. So we have this word, the merit as vast as the ocean. Đức chúng như hải. So this means the merit of a Sangha is as big as the ocean. So when we learn like this, it's very, very interesting. How come this word is connected by this character and this character? So it's very interesting. And sometimes if we don't have a lot of time, we learn in this very entertaining way. In one of the center, I saw a younger sibling learning. It's like, oh, you're learning Chinese, so good. And this sister said, oh, I learned so many things and it caused me a headache. So now I'm learning Chinese for fun. So I just want to bow down to the younger siblings. It's so this learning in this entertaining way is very fun. So our practice is presented very clearly in the 37 factors encouraging us on the path of awakening. So BAM 37 factors, 37 qualities or areas that can support in our practice and our awakening. The first is that we have for diligence, for right diligence. The second is the four trainings of the minds. The four and the five powers, the five faculties. And the 7 factors leading to awakening. And the Noble Eightfold Path. And the last one is the 4 foundation of mindfulness, the Satipatthana. So when I learned the 37 factors leading to awakening, then suddenly I discovered there was one part where all these lists have. So the 4 diligence, it talks about diligence. The diligence in our practice. And in the 4 training for the mind, Yanisura. So there is one part that is a diligence in paying attention, focusing our attention. And in the 5 faculties, there's also a faculty that talks about diligence. The 5 powers is also contains diligence. And the 7 factor leading to awakening, there's also diligence. And the Noble Eightfold Path, there is also diligence. In the 4 foundation of mindfulness, even though it's not listing it clearly, but it's actually listing the diligence as to be fully wholehearted in our diligence, in our mindfulness, in our awareness, our awakening. So that is the principles of the 4 foundation of mindfulness. So it's very deeply connected to diligence. And if you have the time to look at these 37 factors leading to awakening, because we know these are the source of energies that can support our path of awakening, our path of practice, and our path of transforming these difficulties within ourselves and to nourish our happiness. And in here, we see that diligence is something that the Buddha keep repeating very clearly in these 37 factors. So this is diligence very important. Diligence, the 4 right diligence, the meaning means is the or the wholesome seeds of happiness within us. When we have them already, such as the seed of really wanting to practice, really wanting to do sitting meditation, to really want to have a mindful steps, it's already there. So a practitioner will find all the ways to maintain and continue that aspiration, that hope, to maintain it continuously. So these are the wholesome seeds that we can discover in our brother and sister that we feel that I don't have it yet, even though I haven't seen it manifest within myself yet. Then I find all the ways to help these wholesome seeds to express within my consciousness and other paths. And there are other unwholesome seeds, such as jealousy or resentment or blaming and criticizing. So if these seeds have already manifest themselves, so we use our Kungfu so that these seeds will come back into our subconsciousness. And if the unwholesome seeds have not manifest yet, then we practice so that they still keep sleeping. They're still in dormant as seeds, so they don't come up and manifest. So these are the four diligence, four right diligence. And so this subcategory of diligence is in another way, Thay have used this word minh mực, which means continuous. Minh mực, so it means it keeps flowing forever. It never stops. Mean, there was mean, it keep continue, always continue, no continuation. So mực means very close, very intimate, very small. So if you close the door very tightly, then the wind cannot come in. So minh mực is one of the three principles of practice in Plum Village, which means to practice continuously with no disruption. So that's another word for diligence. And this continuous practicing without disruption, it helps all these seeds that we look at through mindfulness, so that these seeds can be manifest up into our consciousness. There are many seeds from our subconsciousness that can manifest up to our consciousness. This could be a wholesome or unwholesome seeds. Some seeds that are very healing, such as love and understanding, and want to support each other mutually and to find a beautiful path for the whole Sangha. So these are beautiful seeds. And some seeds that are not so wholesome, such as our frustration and our anger from the past somewhere, that it come back and fill us up in this present moment. And we might still live in this feeling or resentment that happens like 10 or 20 years ago. And we don't know how to put them to go back to sleep in our subconsciousness. So because of our practice of diligence and continuous practice without interruption, it helps us recognize, here's a seed of anger here coming up. And because we can see that, we hear this thing and we touch this thing, and somehow it touched that seed of anger from subconsciousness, and that manifests up in our consciousness. Because we hear this phrase in the sutra or these songs, and something beautiful, it comes into us through our ears. Or because we see this beautiful flower, it goes through our eyesight, and it goes into our subconsciousness and invite this beautiful seed to come up. And this practice, I see that We need to maintain it continuously and over the long term. And I see this one exercise that is very fun that Sangha can do it together. Instead of writing the many lines in the Kungfu notebook, some days we don't have time to read the Kungfu books to fill it out. Each day we can draw this circle and we can write that. How was my seeds from the subconsciousness in the morning, the afternoon, evening? What came up? Just call the name. For example, the name, the seed of dinner, the food was good. That seed come up and it makes me very happy. So we wrote this word, dinner was good. And this other word comes up. We can see something like my brothers or sisters walking, and I can see that, how strange is my brother and sisters walking so rushingly like that. And I don't know the reason why, but it's just my perceptions. When I first see that, why this brother, sister walking so fast like this? So then I can feel, there's a sense of worry. So that's it. I wrote the word worry there. So we just simple recognitions. And in the end, we can see that, should I draw this picture of this face, this happy face? Because we just do simple recognitions. We accept everything that came. In a meeting, we can hear a brother, sister, can say something, an idea that for myself, I can feel like, this idea lacks so much responsibility and it's like doesn't follow the Sangha direction at it. So I can see a little bit frustration coming up. So I can recognize it right away while I'm in the meeting. So I can come back to practice. And I know that at night when I do this checking, I can write down frustration. So this way of writing down the Kungfu book, that is very interesting because there's certain mental formation when you sit down and write out and it comes out, because sometimes you might not recognize in the moment. So this writing down may happen in, writing it down, checking in can be 15 minutes. Certain things that it might not comes. Sometimes certain things such as that it comes from the outside, like an image from my mom or dad coming to chase and hit me or say something very hurtful for me. It could be 15 years ago. And suddenly this memory comes up. So it's very strange. So in moments when we practice deeply mindfulness, we have a lot of chance to be in touch with a lot of these seeds very deep in our subconsciousness. So we can write this word, you can say hurt feelings. And do not analyze it any further, just simple recognition. And do this several times and for several days. And we can create this Kungfu notebook. So I like this way of practicing with the Kungfu, so I can recognize these very seeds that are very sleeping very deeply in me 10, 15, 20 years ago. And my mom said something very hurtful to me and I totally forgot about it. But suddenly it just manifests itself like that. So sometimes like someone might say something to me 3 months ago and suddenly it reappears within me and makes me sad. So then if I practice continuously without interruption like this, I can dwell happily. So this dwelling happily, this is one of these the second principle of Plum Village practice. So to see all the phenomena that happen within and around me and to dwell happily in this current moment. So these are three basic principles of Plum Village that I feel I could just study it and learn it my whole life. Sometimes I really want to help my mom or my dad, to help all the people who are still suffering, and open many retreats. During the pandemic, I see that we don't have any chance to help people outside. And I feel very sad that I could not come out to help. So at that time, even in the Sangha, I can feel like, oh, it's boring because there's no work here. There's nothing to do. But we know that dwelling happily in the present moment, I can see how deep I dwell happily in the present moment. Then I can realize for myself through my practice. I still nourish my practice in this awareness every day. And Thay also talk about right diligence in the sixth um, one, in the 14 OI trainings, and also in the fifth, in the loving kindness, in the 5MT. I vow to develop this love and this non-discrimination within myself, and this compassion within myself, and we able to smile, and this that we're practicing right diligence, the mind of non-discrimination and the mind of embracing and forgiveness. To call this name is very it's not easy, because sometimes you can call the name and you just want to become this warrior, and you want to cut off this unwholesome part out of ourselves and bring something else more wholesome in its place. So we might can become a warrior and cause more war in ourselves. When we practice, and we can see these very deep seeds of unwholesomeness in ourselves, and we see that I don't have enough strength to take care of it now, so then I invite the seeds to come back to sleep. I see you coming up, and I invite you to sleep. And we use our heart that is not discriminating, but there's a very embracing heart to take care of this. So this is a very useful way to practice for those who have a lot of strong emotion, many emotions coming up, and we keep getting, we can keep getting swept away by the water. Like someone who's seeing a corpse on the river, and you trying to jump down to rescue that corpse. But here you actually just sit there and you see the corpse floating by on in the water, and you just recognize that's what it is. So the dwelling happily in the present moment with all the phenomena happening is there. So this is the discovery. This is the whole discovery of Thay through his practice. This is not something that you do just one day, but there's it's a long, takes many days, and through looking at many sufferings and all these blockage that are happening. I see that the practice of right diligence, or to practice continuously without interruption, is not easy. It's very easy for us to be forgetful and get swept away by our feelings or our mental formations, especially in the very tense meetings, and you have to listen to many ideas that are opposing, and we have to give out some kind of very direct decisions. You have to listen from so many angles. So our practice of continuously practicing without interruption is not easy. And for myself, I try my hardest to practice in these tense meetings. And sometimes I feel that I am maybe I imbalance, so I come back to myself and sit very still and to follow my breath again. And during that time, I can also follow what is happening in this meeting, happening in these conversations, so that I do not lose my anchor. So I keep my anchor very, very diligently, especially in the meetings that they calls my name out. And so it's very easy to feel that I feel hurt. So to bring my breath to go deeper into the dantian area, so that my brain can be feel empty and stop all thinking. And in these meetings, we might have these very interesting ideas. You might have very positive ideas. And it's not a judgment that comes up just from based purely on our emotions only, but it comes from experience. That's something that's beneficial for self. So there are things that I can feel that I can embrace both myself and the Sangha. I can see what the Sangha is like right now, what the consciousness and the environment of the Sangha is right now. And all these conditions, I bring them all into my ideas, so that my ideas are not it's just my own opinions only, but my own suffering only, or my own loss of faith, but it's embraced by a lot of love from my wanting to balance, to want the whole Sangha to go together. And there's some ideas that I know of, these ideas I can say 5 or 6 months later, I can say this idea and it's okay. So during this time, I can just come back to my breath and to feel very light in my 5 skandhas, and I can just give some very beautiful and give the sharing that is more beautiful. And because of the practice of diligence and coming back to myself, and this continuous practice without disruption, it can bring me, it create these harmonize or pacifies from one side only. That's what Thay taught, to harmonize within ourselves first, and just to be there and to love and take care of myself, my 5 skandhas, to take care of my own feelings, to heal myself first with my own love before I look elsewhere. So at that time, I can close all the doors to just come back to myself only. To do walking meditation is one way of coming back to myself. Sitting is another way of coming back. There are brothers in upper hamlet that loves the garden, and they garden with all their heart. That's another way of coming back home. There are those who love to work in the kitchen, and that's another way of them to come back to themselves. And this practice of diligence, practice without interruption, is in all the literatures, that's in the chants in the song in Plum Village, such as the 5 ways to put ends to anger. Someone who is not lovable in the words, the action, and the bodily actions, and so then we have to come back to ourselves, take care of ourselves, and then we can love that person. How this person is let the whole Sangha embrace this person and take care of this person. But us, ourselves, we have to be able to love that person first. And whatever the Sangha decide, there is what the Sangha decide. But for us, we have to be smart. We come back to ourselves to love ourselves first. And we love ourselves. And then we can see this person's a victim of so many conditions, and some conditions not favorable. And for them, and they become a victim. And we can see that, and we can see our forgiveness is very needed for our practice. We might not know the future of that person, but we can see the future of our own self. We can see it can be very dark. I heard the sister from the Lower Hamlet about the lotus pond has a very thick layer of moss on top of the lake, and the sister has to go pick up all the moss up, and we come and help. And after second days, the sister has seen that the lotus leaves have finally come up above the water, manifest above water. So when I see the lotus pond in the Lower Hamlet, I see that's the truth. So our ground, our heart, the feel of our heart is similar. It might be stuck in this thick layer of moss of something from the past. So we need to find a way to kind of tease that moss apart. So to give a chance for what's beautiful, what's wholesome, what's healing in us to come up, to do it 1 day, 2 days. Maybe we have these suffering, these hurt that's been 10, 20 years, 30 years. And we might see that, how come I have practiced for 7 years and nothing happened? I've been here for 7 months. I haven't seen anything. So come back to ourselves and practice continuously without interruptions to take care of ourselves one-sidedly. So there are many of us who have these experiences that we can see that these hurt and suffering can stay with us for many years. But our luck is that we can still continue to go forward. So in the Tăng Chi Bộ, there is a sutra that the Buddha taught about the diligence. There's an example about a chicken that is hatching eggs. So a mommy chicken might have like 10 or 12 eggs, and these mommy chickens having this desire that wants that after a few days, the baby chicks will use their beak to open the eggs. But sometimes to open the eggs and free themselves from the eggs. But yet sometimes these mommy chickens, they might not take care of the eggs too well. They just come outside and play, and they don't sit on the egg to help it hatch. And the mom just go around to go look for food, but there's not very clever and very spend time to hold the eggs and make them warm. So even if the mom might wish a lot for the baby chicks to open up and escape outside of the eggs, but the baby chicks might not come out of the eggs. So if the mommy chicken knows how to warm the eggs and hatch the eggs very diligently, then even if without any effort, the baby chicks were still able to come out of the eggshells naturally. So there are those who might want to practice that. They want to say, I want to attain this great insight that we will not come back to these sufferings. But if that person does not practice these 37 factors helping with the leading to awakening, not practicing the 4 foundation of mindfulness or the 4 diligence. So even if this person might wish and want to have this great wisdom day after day, but if they don't practice diligently, then that will not come. So let me read you this from Anguttara Nikaya. This is the sutra on the practice. Dear monks, if you do not put your attentions in the practice, like follow, to want our heart to be liberated and to not holding on of attachments. So if this person is still holding on and have a lot of leakings, a lot falling back, so why would you say that? What happened? It's because this person has not practiced. What haven't they practiced? They haven't practiced the 4 diligence, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. They haven't practiced the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 4 faculties for the minds, and the 7 factors leading to awakening, and the Noble Eightfold Path. It's the same as you have a chickens, you can have 10 or 12 eggs, and you're trying to hatch the eggs, but you do not hatch them in the right, to warm the eggs up in the right way, and to nurse the eggs in the right way. Even if the chicken wants to have, even if the mommy chicken has this idea and this wish in her heart that the baby chicken, even with the soft legs and the soft beaks, and that they would be able to break apart the shells and can be born safely. But yet these baby chicks with the legs and the soft beaks, they cannot break apart the eggshell safely. Dear Bhikshu, if you live with all your investment deeply in the practice, even if you do not give rise to this idea that I want to attain great wisdom and not falling back in my practice. So even if they don't give rise to that idea, but yet their mind and their heart is still attain the wisdom and not having any fallback. Why is it that? It's because this person have practiced. What have they practiced? They practice the 4 foundation of mindfulness, the 4 diligence, the 4 trainings of the mind, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 factors leading to awakening, and then Noble Eightfold Path. So it's like the monk, he has the 8 or 12 eggs, and he's able to warm and the eggs properly and hatch the eggs properly, even if this baby, even if the mother chicken did not give rise to the idea in her head that I want the baby chicks to able to pick and open the eggshells, even if they're soft beaks and the head, and they get born safely after breaking back the eggshell. But yet these baby chicks, they're able to break the eggshells and get born safely. Why is this? Because the 8 or 12 eggs have been warmed and nourished in a proper way. And so it's the same with Bhikshu. If you have practiced the 4 foundation of mindfulness and have accomplished the 8 Noble Eightfold Path, even if you haven't give rise to the thought that I want to have no more falling back, but yet your mind will still be liberated and you do not have any stubbornness and hold. So when I discovered the sutra, I was very happy that in the Sangha, we are these chickens. We are hatching these eggs. We do not need to ask when I will become fully realized. When do I become a Buddha? But if we have the practice of continuous with no interruption, practice with right diligence, and each day we can see whether our Kungfu is going up or going down. We can see it for ourselves. I think each of us can see for ourselves what is our Kungfu like after a month. It comes up, or it kind of plateau, or it goes down. Each time we sit, each time we walk, we have this opportunity to check in on our practice. I'm very fortunate to have the chance that I was able to live as in Sangkok and live as an attendant for Thay. And I remember one day the attendants, they pushed Thay's wheelchair to walk around, and we came to this tree in this little pot, and we look at the tree, and we can see that the leaves are becoming yellow, and maybe it has a chance to wilt. So Thay told us he taught us to change the pot. So he holds the soil in his hand, and the attendants were like, "Oh, Thay, you want us to change the soil?" He nodded, yes. And he pointed all around the pot. "So you mean the pot is too small? You want to change the pot?" He nodded. And he was so happy. It's almost like someone who could speak exactly what he wants in his heart. And we were so happy. And that afternoon, the attendants, we went to the new hamlet. We went to get a new pot and a new soil, and Thay taught us to water, to change the pot and water, and about how much is enough. And he would put his hand up to say, "That's enough water." The next day, Thay came and visit the tree again. Anytime he has a chance to go outside, he would go visit that tree. And someday he went and he got sick, but every day he still come and look at this tree. And after a while, the leaves of that plant becomes green again, and we know this tree is surviving. And each time we visit that tree, and all the attendants, they feel a bit embarrassed because we are Thay's attendants. We're supposed to discover this first, but Thay was the one who discovered it. And soon after, the tree has a flower. And I remember Thay came by and Thay touched the flowers, and he looked at the flowers, and he really enjoyed it fully. And one afternoon, and we were gathering underneath the big trees behind his hut, and we took some flowers to give to Thay, and Thay smell it and enjoy the flowers, and Thay give this flower to each person to smell. And I remember that day there was Sister Đào Nghiêm and Sister Phùng Nghiêm, Sister Tim Khánh also visit Thay. So Thay gave the flower to each person to smell and enjoy. Attendants also get to smell, everyone. Even Sister Chân Không, she's not able to distinguish any smell. The sister could not tell which this smell is a good fragrance or not, but she said, "Thay, let me try it too." And Thay gave the flower to her, and she smelled it, and her face is almost like there's a sun that's shining. It's almost as if a kid that see the mom come home from the market, and the mom gave some treats to the to the kid, And she's so happy, so happy. So that was a legendary afternoon for us. And everyone felt this deeply, this dwelling happily in the present moment of all the phenomena around of Thay, the way Thay approached life. We all felt it. And that tree is still there. You can see that tree. It's called, is the Mộc Lang tree. It's still there and it still gives flowers. Very, and Thay had helped so many plants in this place. And Thay taught us how to water properly and give it nutrients properly so that the tree can flower. It can grow. And when I come to Thay's hut there, every time I come, I would visit this tree. And if I see a flower, if I see the flower, then I feel it's almost like the Buddha is born, a baby Buddha is born in this new leaf. Because if we practice diligently, continuously without interruption every day, then we can give rise to all these beautiful, wholesome qualities. In each day, we invite the Buddha to be born in us. The Buddha sitting on the lotus throne. Each day the Buddha is born. And each year we have the chance to welcome the Vesak, the day that Buddha was born. But each day we have this chance to welcome the Buddha is born within us. So sometimes rainy days like this, I remember the rain, there was rain and it's cold, so Thay could not come out. So Thay looked outside and see. So I put that Mộc Lang tree in front of the greenhouse. And then the Thay sits inside and look, and Thay's enjoying the tea that the attendants brewed for him, and he enjoyed the tree outside the greenhouse. And we would talk to him to share with him about the Anapanasati and also about his books on his experience when he was a young monk. And Thay would listen deeply, and we would watch the flowers, and we there in the full presence of each other. And these moments to me were very legendary. We have very few chance to have this happen again. Maybe Thay is here now, but we don't know when his body will dissipate. And I sat next to him, and knowing it's very precious to be next to him, knowing that one day his body won't be here. So I practice to live with that when I still have my loved one around me, when my teacher is still around me, my brother is still around me, I look deeply to see what's the most beautiful things in each of my brothers and sisters. And so that this day, in the end, I still have Thay. And in the end, I still have my brother and sister next to me. So I treasure that. It's not that we always have this. We can lose it very, very quickly. And if in the present moment, we're able to cherish this. Even if this person is not there, we're still sad. But we know that in the depth of my consciousness, I never lose this person. When we practice a step very deeply, even if the steps is not there in the future, but the steps is there in my subconsciousness, I can practice with my mom and my dad these breath and these steps like this. And whenever I want to invite them, I can invite these steps up because this cherishing is there within me because I practice diligently without interruption. And each day I have a chance to live in such a beautiful environment like this. And I can welcome the new Buddha born within me each day. At least I have a few little Buddha get born each day. So I feel very happy. And this continuous practice every day so that the Buddha within me becomes bigger. And the inheritance that I receive becomes deeper. The inheritance from Thay and from the ancestors. Thank you, dear Sangha.